Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. St. James Health Department to clamp down on homeowners who breach the building code. Opposition raises concerns about the differences in oil price projections from the government and the implications budget. And later in sports, West Indies women secure shock win in Cricket World Cup opener. I'm Shane Masters and here are the details. The St. James Health Department says stronger measures will be implemented to ensure that homeowners abide by the building code. This comes after a gardener fell in a sewage pit in the Coral Gardens community and died on Monday afternoon. We will be coming for you. The word from the St. James Health Department to homeowners in the parish who continue to breach the building code. It comes following the death of a gardener in Coral Gardens on Monday. The gardener, identified as Shane, was reportedly cutting the grass at a residential property in the area when he fell in a sewage pit which was covered by a piece of board. Acting Chief Public Health Inspector for St. James, Sharika Lewis, says greater focus will now be placed on the construction of houses to ensure that the building code is followed. If not, the owners will face serious consequences.
There are certain legal procedures that we're going to be following to have persons comply with the building code and what was recommended. We are forewarning persons. It is very imperative because over the past 2 or 3 years, we have been seeing that the number one complaints received to the health department is that sewage is overflowing or manholes and other sewage structures are not done properly. So yes, persons are being forewarned.
In the meantime, Deputy Mayor of Montego Bay, Richard Vernon, says breaching the building code is of grave concern.
I have spoken to the public health inspector for the chief public health inspector for the parish of St. James, and we have had a discussion in terms of the assessment of the pits across the parish, and we'll be doing a thorough assessment in regards to those and ensuring that where necessary we prosecute.
TVJ News understands that there has not been any proper covering for the sewage pit at the location where the tragedy happened for the past 4 years. Now, as the charges against the homeowner for Monday's tragedy, Ms. Lewis gave this response.
We are in the early stages of our investigation. We are going to conduct our investigation as soon as the JCF would have cleared the site as a crime zone, and we are actually going to go in. We will assess the situation to see what exactly has occurred and take necessary actions.
She says going forward there will be increased inspections of houses in the parish as per the building code. This will be done at the 50, 70 and 90% markers. Over in St. Thomas, the Yalas and Landui police are trying to piece together the circumstances which led to the death of 61-year-old Stanford Wilson. TVJ News understands that Mr. Wilson, who is of a Landui address, was sitting at a shop about 3 p.m. on Thursday when men armed with guns approached and shot him. They then made their escape. It's not clear at this time what led to this latest murder in the parish. This is the 6th murder since the start of the year in St. Thomas. The Trelawney police have made some progress with last weekend's murders in the Spicy Hill community. This after several persons were taken into custody in connection with the killings. Meanwhile, the police are calling for a list of men wanted for crimes, including murder, to surrender.
Since the start of the year, the parish of Trelawney has recorded 8 murders, 2 fewer when compared to the corresponding period in 2021. The most recent occurred over the weekend in the Spicy Hill community. 3 persons were shot in separate incidents, 2 fatally. The deceased have been identified as 38-year-old Aaron Jarrett of Capture Land in Spicy Hill and 21-year-old Tika Ennis, a resident of the United States. Head of the Trelawney Police Division, Superintendent Carlos Russell, says the police have made some headway in their investigations.
We have already taken some persons in custody. Some persons has also handed themselves into the police. The investigation into those matters are continuing. We believe that we will be able to bring the situation under control in very short order. We know the players that are involved in these conflicts, and we're already on top of the situation.
But the police also have an interest in a list of men also wanted for murders and other crimes.
We are looking for Mr. Brian Samuels, O.C. Bree. He's wanted for murder. We're also looking for Junior Bennett. He's wanted for the murder of Miss Garcia Williams, which was committed in Top Trelawney. Also the Morrison brothers, both Stanford and Eric Morrison, they are wanted for murder and wounding with intent, which was committed in 2018.
Others include Junior Clark, otherwise called Thick Chest, Colin McFarlane and Christian Davis, all wanted for wounding with intent. Lascelles Wright, otherwise called Bayer, is also wanted for murder.
We're asking all these men to turn themselves over to the police as soon as possible. We are also asking persons who have any information about the whereabouts of these persons to contact us, or they can call us to 311 or 911, or they can call the nearest police station.
Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
The parliamentary opposition is again raising concern about the differences in oil price projections from the government and the implications for the 2022-2023 budget. The Ministry of Finance has oil projections at $67.50 per barrel, while Petrojam has $79.36. Energy Minister Darrell Vaz responded to the discrepancy pointed out by opposition spokesman on energy, Philip Paulwell.
I'm not quite sure at what point these assumptions were made, but I would think just based on the discrepancy between it, that obviously it may have been at different times.
Well, the books were all tabled at the same time, on the same day. And I suspect, especially the Ministry of Finance would have taken the extra trouble to cross-reference with the lead agency in Jamaica on the issue of petroleum.
Minister Vaz promised to get clarification on the matter.
I'll have to communicate with the Ministry of Finance on that.
And you can appreciate that it is fundamental to the entire exercise here, because we are pursuing the finances of the country based on certain assumptions. And if they are fundamentally different from what has been indicated by the Ministry of Finance, then we are really in for a serious problem.
The discussion was held at Thursday's sitting of the Standing Finance Committee of Parliament. Amidst concerns about the Russia-Ukraine invasion, the energy minister said Jamaica's oil supply chain is not in jeopardy. He promised to consider the opposition's suggestion to suspend Petrojam's pricing arrangement to ease the impact of rising oil prices.
March 10, 2020. Time stood still.
Jamaica today confirmed its first imported case of coronavirus disease 2019.
Jamaica and Jamaicans were thrust into a new normal.
This now gives the government authority to take certain measures.
Big propaganda must spread from the whole away from where they are. Black people are not taxi. See, we are job.
It takes its mental toll.
What are the lessons learned?
I do have a lot of regret for what transpired with Jodian.
And will COVID ever go away? We'll explore in a TVJ News documentary, The COVID-19 Pandemic, The Jamaican Story. Tuesday, March 8th at 8:30 p.m.
Welcome back to the Midday News. There's a call this afternoon for greater access to funding for Caribbean countries to deal with issues which affect the environment. Minister with responsibility for the environment, Senator Matthew Samuda, made the call as he addressed the 50th anniversary of the creation of the United Nations Environment Programme. More in this report. The Caribbean and the globe continues to be daunted by the effects of climate change and other environmental impacts. It's why there's a call for greater focus to be placed on the environment with the requisite support from global leaders. Speaking at the 50th anniversary of the creation of the United Nations Environmental Programme, UNEP, on Friday, Minister with responsibility for the environment, Senator Matthew Samuda, commended the UNEP for the work they have done so far, but said there's much more which has not been touched. As such, he says there are 3 critical actions which need to be carried out as part of a process of transformation and renewal under the leadership of the UNEP. Firstly, he says there must be an all-inclusive representation, including strong engagement from highly vulnerable economies. Mr. Samuda says the current engagement processes, especially at the national and local levels, are inadequate to meet the goals originally established for the organization.
There is need to simplify funding mechanisms that target scaled-up interventions at the regional and sub-regional levels. This modality requires strengthening of existing regional coordinating bodies such as the UNEP Sub-Regional Office for the Caribbean and the UNEP Caribbean Environment Program's Regional Coordination Unit, Secretariat to the Cartagena Convention. Jamaica hosts both entities, which have played a significant role in regional environmental governance, but could be more rigorous in effecting change at the policy level.
Finally, he says there must be a strategic, focused approach on how the science policy interfaces can be more solution-driven, implementable, and equitable.
There is strong evidence of a gap between policy acceptance and implementation at the national, regional, and international levels. The triple planetary crisis of climate change, nature and biodiversity loss, and pollution can only be addressed with unity of purpose and collective bold action. UNEP is uniquely positioned and has a crucial role to play to reinvigorate international cooperation and spur collective action.
The United Nations Environment Programme is the global authority which sets the environmental agenda, promotes the coherent implementation of the environmental dimension of sustainable development within the United Nations system, and serves as an authoritative advocate for the global environment. A lack of access to timely care and disruptions to prenatal services are to blame for an increase in maternal mortality during the COVID-19 pandemic. That's according to the director of the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, Dr. Carissa Etienne. Dr. Etienne says 1 in 3 pregnant women have been unable to access timely critical care during the pandemic. At a media briefing on Wednesday, Dr. Etienne said this is a tragedy, especially now that there are safe and effective vaccines. She also said in a region that is rife with inequality, women in general have once again been disproportionately affected.
Many women had to take on more at home as primary caregivers and are still struggling to resume their careers. As countries enacted lockdowns to slow the spread of the virus, there was a spike in violence against women. During these periods, calls to domestic violence hotlines soared by 40% in some countries.
Dr. Etienne also said women at the front line of COVID-19 were caring for patients and putting themselves at risk. She said it is no surprise they accounted for 70% of COVID cases among health professionals.
And even though women are slightly less likely to develop severe disease than men, some studies show that women of ethnic minorities, such as Afro-descendants and indigenous women, as well as migrants, are often at greater risk due to the overlap of gender and social factors.
With the Business Minute, here's Cody and Barrett.
In the world of business, listed company Diamond Trading is reporting a net profit of 448.2 million Jamaican dollars for the 12 months up to December 2021. That's a 44% increase over 2020. Diamond's revenues amounted to $17.7 billion, a 39% increase over the previous year. Chairman and CEO of Diamond, Derek Cottrell, says the growth in revenue is attributed to a number of developments throughout the year. And in business internationally, the U.S. has announced fresh sanctions on Russian oligarchs, the latest attempt to squeeze President Vladimir Putin as his invasion of Ukraine continues. The new penalties will target members of the Russian elite, their families, and close associates, cutting them off from the U.S. financial system. According to U.S. President Joe Biden, the goal is to maximize the impact on Putin. Dmitry Peskov, Mr. Putin's press secretary, is among those targeted in the latest blockade. And coming up in the Business Review this Sunday, a hair accessory that is both practical and stylish, how one teacher has capitalized off her free time in the pandemic. And that's it for the Business Minute this week. I'm Cody-Ann Barrett.
Time now for the top regional and international stories with Sandy Williams.
In the region, Caribbean community CARICOM leaders have pledged their support for the incumbent Commonwealth Secretary General Patricia Scotland for a second term as head of the 54-member grouping. According to the communique issued at the end of their intersessional summit on Wednesday night, the regional leaders expressed their overwhelming support for the re-election of Baroness Patricia Scotland as Secretary General of the Commonwealth. The Dominican-born Scotland was elected to the post at the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Malta in 2015, and her re-election is scheduled for June this year when the Commonwealth leaders meet in Rwanda. Scotland is the second Secretary General from the Caribbean and the first woman to hold the post. On the international scene, a car crashed into a California preschool, sending over a dozen children to hospital. Officials say the vehicle went through the wall of the school building in Anderson on Thursday. 19 children and at least 2 staff members were inside at the time. Authorities say ambulances took 14 children to hospital. Parents drove 5 more kids to medical centers. Police have not detailed the extent of the children's injuries, but they say no one was killed in the crash. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Sandy Williams.
March 10, 2020. Time stood still.
Jamaica today confirmed its first imported case of coronavirus disease 2019.
Jamaica and Jamaicans were thrust into a new normal.
This now gives the government authority to take certain measures.
Big propaganda them are spread from the whole away from where they are. Black people are not taxi. See we are draw up.
It takes its mental toll.
What are the lessons learned?
I do have a lot of regret for what transpired with Jodian.
And will COVID ever go away? We'll explore in a TVJ News documentary, The COVID-19 Pandemic, The Jamaican Story.
Tuesday, March 8th at 8:30 p.m.
And we head to a quick break. When we come back, Simon Preston will have your Midday Sports Report.
Welcome back. It's now time for Midday Sports. I'm Simon Preston. The West Indies opened their account in the 2022 Women's Cricket World Cup with a surprise 3-run victory over the host nation New Zealand at the Bay Oval earlier today.
Batting first, the Caribbean side posted 259 for 9 off their 50 overs, with Hayley Matthews top scoring with 119. Matthews is now the third West Indian after Stefanie Taylor and Deandra Dottin to score a World Cup century. Jamaicans Shadeen Nation and skipper Stefanie Taylor also chipped in with 36 and 30 respectively. Leah Tahuhu took 3 for 57 for the home side. In reply, New Zealand, who needed 6 runs to win off the last over with 3 wickets in hand, fell apart as Deandra Dottin took 2 wickets and orchestrated a run-out to lead the Caribbean side to a 3-run win as New Zealand were bowled out for 256 in 49.5 overs. Player of the match Hayley Matthews also took 2 for 41 with the ball, and she's hoping this victory can give the team a lift for the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, I think obviously coming into the tournament, first game of a World Cup, you always want to win. Furthermore, against the host New Zealand, who've been playing some really, really good cricket. So yeah, I think to come out here and play the way we did, to come and defend the runs like we did, definitely puts down a statement, and yeah, it just sends confidence to the entire team, and hopefully we can carry that through the tournament.
The West Indies will next be in action against England on Tuesday in Dunedin.
Legendary Australian leg spinner Shane Warne is dead. Warne died of a suspected heart attack at age 52. Warne took 708 test wickets, the second most of all time in 145 matches across a stellar 15-year career. His management company said Warren had been found unresponsive in his villa in Thailand on Friday. Warren's death also follows the passing of former Australian wicketkeeper Rod Marsh earlier today. And finally, this afternoon, Jamaica are leading Greece 1-0 in the World Group 2 Davis Cup playoffs in Athens. Roland Randy Phillips has given Jamaica the lead after defeating Greek number 1 Mikhail Pervolakis 6-2, 4-6, 6-3 in 2 hours and 11 minutes. At sports time, Jamaican number 1 Blaise Bicknell was leading Petros Tsitsipas 3-2 in the first set of the second match. The winner of the playoff will be promoted to Group 2, while the loser will be relegated to their continental region. And that is it for your Midday Sports Report. I'm Simon Preston. Ashane, it's over to you.
Thanks, Simon. And that's where we leave it for this week on the Midday News. I'm Ashane Masters. Join us at 7 for primetime news. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, have a good afternoon.